What's up? It's your boy Pen, you well, the Black Pen. So on the 25th of November 2024, I posted a tweet on X. The tweet goes, why do you think ex-President Jacob Zuma is fighting so hard to remain a member of the ANC, especially after setting up Umkhonto weSizwe, an opposition political party? Please share your theories because I'm struggling to fully understand this potential chess move. Thank you. I'm reading this on the 27th of November in the morning. And it's at close to 680,000 views. Over 3,400 likes and over 530 retweets. Why do you think Zuma is fighting so hard to remain a member of the ANC? You know, it's one of the things that some people are not understanding. This guy's, I guess, been asked to step down as president of the ANC and of the country. He's gone on thereafter to go and set up his own political party, of which initially he acted like he was not involved. Other people registered it. Next thing, he's the face. Next thing, he's the ambassador. Next thing, it's coming out that actually I asked for this thing to be set up. Shady. Okay, cool. Umkhonto weSizwe does phenomenally well at the national elections in South Africa. 14% coming out of nowhere. Becomes the third biggest political party in South Africa with no real structures, with no real leadership. They patch it together over pieces over the following months, attracting all types of leaders from or Judge Hlophe to Abo Senior Advocate Dalimpofu, to Floyd Chibambo of the EFF, who's the SG now, to Busisiwe Mkhwebane, to Mzwanele Manyi, to Brian Mulife, to all these, you know, maybe arguably RET type of faction people of the ANC, these pro-black, pro-poor, supposedly people. But why would Zuma now, after doing all of that, the ANC puts him through disciplinary hearing and he gets expelled as a member? And he's like, no, I want to stay a member of the ANC. Why? Why? You should have left. You went and you set up your own political party. It seems to be doing well. You're growing. You're recruiting people, even from the ANC itself. Why do you want to remain a member of the ANC? And these are some of the comments that I got under the tweet. One of the best ones is from Xavier, at Just Xavier B. This is his take. The issue is that President Jacob Zuma understands that Umkhonto weSizwe cannot lead South Africa, just like it could not in 1994. He was president before, so he understands what structures are needed to lead a nation. Only one party in South Africa has such structures, and that is the ANC, who on a national level has the structures and the manpower to occupy all levels of government, state, policing, judiciary, and various government bodies. Remember, many consider President Zuma as the mind of state capture. Umkhonto weSizwe does not have the numbers, the discipline, nor the ability to achieve this, and that is why Zuma is fighting very hard to remain ANC and possibly take over the ANC. It's the same reason the DA does not have a total portfolio. Nearly all DA ministers have an ANC deputy to ensure there is no full autonomy of any portfolio under the presidency. People forget just how powerful and well-connected the ANC is internationally and locally with the private sector. So it is vital that whoever wishes to rule South Africa must either outgrow the ANC rapidly, which can take 50 years. We unfortunately don't think ex-President Jacob Zuma will be alive beyond 50 years, or use them, merge with them, or join them. The obstacle for Zuma remains around 50 individuals within the ANC who would never allow this, which I'm guessing is the Ramaphosa faction that is leading this then. I go and I ask Xavier. First, I say, thank you, Xavier. Why not fight this battle from within the ANC? He was within the ANC. So if he understands that the ANC, so powerful, has all the structures nationally, all the relationships in business, globally, why not just remain within the ANC and fight? And fight to dethrone Ramaphosa and the people that are supporting him. Xavier responds, the issue seems to be an internal cleansing of RET which started in 2017. It is now almost completed, and those who oppose the GNU reveal themselves knowing the consequences. And that is why we saw some big names leave after the election. But there are still some who oppose the NDP but are silent now, names like Ulindiwe Sisulu, etc. He says, I wager no less than 1,000 would still mobilize against Ramaphosa, but it would be in vain. Even if Zuma disbanded Umkhonto weSizwe and rejoined the ANC, he would lose any opportunity to gain meaningful representation in the structures or any form of government. At this point, he must grow the MK and take at least 3 municipalities outright in the next election and hope that Ramaphosa steps down before 2029. As it stands, inside the ANC, any form of coalition with the MK is strictly forbidden. He says in brackets, I don't have any official paperwork on this yet. And he says an EFF coalition is still possible, and some are even calling for it in light of recent events. Many comments under Xavier's initial comment and these responses, which are pretty dope. I want to read some of the others. This is from Uvuyiswa Ramukhopa, who is under Rise Mzansi. She's part of the Gauteng, she's a Gauteng MEC, by the way, for agriculture and rural development, and the national chairperson of Rise Mzansi as well. I've sat with Usisi Uvuyiswa Ramukhopa. This was her comment under the same post. I read somewhere yesterday about an interview that Umsholozi did, where he says the master plan is a reverse takeover of the ANC so as to restore it to its true self and rescue it from the clutches of white monopoly capital or something like that. I then respond and say, thank you, says Vuyiswa. So essentially bleed the ANC of its voters until the ANC is so weak that they partner with Umkhonto weSizwe and the MK disbands to join the ANC. Again, I ask, why can't they change the ANC from within? This is weird for me. Vuyiswa says, well, kinda, but the article says the aim is to unite black parties for the purpose of ultimately returning the ANC to its former glory, freeing it from its current, in brackets, capitalist shackles. This apparently also necessitates that Jay-Z, Jacob Zuma, remain a member of the ANC. It's a lot, to be honest. Some of these thoughts. Let me read some of the other comments here. Let's see here. At General Gumete says, from the start it was about saving the ANC. So it makes sense for him to keep himself closer to the ANC. At LJSA, Lawrence Jacobson, I think it is about building a narrative frame, something Shibambu Mpofu and Zuma are masters at doing. The battle for the lead role in the NDR. At Ntumhle Kepe, he knows it's cold outside the ANC. He even said so himself that it's cold out there. He doesn't want to lose the support of those within the ANC. Umkhonto weSizwe party is just a thing for him to test his popularity and remain relevant. At Real Chizion, Young King, his strategy may be aimed at preserving his legacy, shielding himself from political and legal risks, and keeping his faction's interests alive. The situation reflects the deeply factionalized nature of the ANC and the high-stakes power dynamics at play. At, I just want to get his full handle, Elliot Chauke, Schwarzenegger Chauke. He joined the ANC at a very young age, participated in Umkhonto weSizwe operations, got arrested and spent 10 years in Robben Island at the prison. You can't allow Mafiki Zolo to kick you out when you have that type of resume. So that's the one. Olivia Lagrange says, my thought is MK was there to reduce outright power, which it successfully managed to do. I do think Zuma would have preferred to be the ANC's main GNU coalition partner instead of the DA. Therefore, possibly the push to get back into the ANC. Ramaphosa, on the other hand, as we know, panders to both the East and the West. It's not necessarily a bad thing, in brackets, but the coalition government will likely cause an end to triple BEE regulations to attract more FDI, foreign direct investment. I think Zuma desperately wants to stop that from happening. As we all know, he is a BRICS loyalist. Apart from all this, and I'm not a Ramaphosa fan as such, I do think it's in South Africa's best interest to remain neutral regarding the East versus the West / NATO versus BRICS. Sadly, this seems to have polarized our ports as we see Cape Town poet serving, in inverted commas, US and EU, or the Cape Town port serving the US and EU, and Durban and Richards Bay servicing the East, apart from Ramaphosa's deal with Germany, shipping all our best coal out from the East Coast. Olivia goes on to say, Zuma's power play has always been access to raw materials, both in South Africa and in the SADC region. Let me see if I want to read a few more. Let's read this one. At Tugang 3, Tsogang, Vugani, Amkeni. I have a few theories of my own. Number one, it must be clear that he was expelled and that he didn't volunteer to leave. Number two, he can always say Umkhonto we was fighting to rescue the ANC from parachuted Trojans. Number three, when negotiating the final takeover of the ANC, one can always say, I never left. It was all to teach one or two lessons. And number four, or maybe he just wants to keep them busy while confusing the hell out of them and everybody who is watching. So yeah, these are some of the thoughts, man. It's interesting. It's part of the excitement of the political game that is South Africa. For me, it's also a bit sad. You know, we've got a history in this country of a racial history, which many of us wish we can go beyond. If it means we're replacing race with class, so be it. And say we have now graduated from racial division to class division, where there are the rich, the middle class, the poor, regardless of race, of which, of course, the majority rich would be white because of legacy. But then we move from class to later on maybe ideology, to maybe later on some type of meritocracy. The most capable, most competent person, regardless of race, regardless of class, regardless of religion, occupies certain spaces so that we can move the country forward. Somewhat of a Springbok economy, a Springbok political landscape where the fastest, strongest, most intelligent, most innovative, best problem solver occupies political seats, economic seats, etc. We're not at that place yet. We're still very racially divided. Because we haven't fixed the legacies, the racial legacies of colonialism, British, of apartheid, Afrikaner, we have a situation where black people fought in the liberation struggle, led by the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, the Inkatha Freedom Party, the IFP, and others. Yeah, the Black Consciousness Movement of Stephen Bantu Biko. 1994 would happen, we'd have our first democratic elections, the ANC would win, and then we'd fast forward 30 years later, and you see that not much has changed. What has happened, sadly, is that the ANC has fractured, where the ANC looked like it was consolidating the black voice to make sure that black people were uplifted, at least economically, so that now that black people have money and they're rich, now that black people have adequate education and they are doctors, they have master's, honors degrees, etc., now that black people are players in the economy, now we can graduate from race to class. And now we can say, look, there are rich black people, a big chunk of them. There are rich white Indian colored people. But then we have a lot of middle class, or have some middle class and a lot of poor. How do we now help the poor to ensure that we're not just a classist nation, which you'll find in an America, in a China, in a Europe, where you might have a generally same race, but you have different classes. How do we fix the classes so that we ensure that the poor have good education, have skills, have access to land, can engage in the mainstream economy, to a point where we then graduate from classism to meritocracy, where we're saying the most competent people, regardless of how much you earn, where you come from, are you black, white, Indian, it doesn't matter. If you are the best person to solve this problem, we will ensure that you get there. If you are the smartest person to run this thing, we will ensure. But we have to go through this thing, and now we've gotten stuck. And 30 years later, what the ANC has done is gotten fractured. Initially, Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma splitting, and you have COPE that comes around, led by Terra Likota and Musiwa Likota and Mbazi Mashilowa. It would now fade into oblivion now with Ramaphosa coming back. Later on, you'd have the same ANC splitting with Zuma and Ramaphosa, with the Zuma RET, Radical Economic Transformation faction, and then you'd have Cyril Ramaphosa. We'd see the expunging of people like Isma Magashula, who'd gone to create ACT, the African Congress for Transformation. We'd see the purging of other ANC loyalists, Brian Molefe, etc., etc. You'd see the purging, even under Zuma, of the Youth League, who were pushing for nationalization, for getting the land back, expropriation without compensation. Julius Malema, Floyd Shibambu, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and others. Senior advocate Dalim Mpofu would go and join them as well. The EFF would then grow. 10 years later, we're celebrating the EFF. Brilliant. It's done well. It's been a mosquito in parliament to ensure that even with a small percentage of voters, you know, a tenth of the voters, they still are pushing for certain agendas which are meant to help the transformation agenda for black people. We're here today. The EFF is splitting. Floyd Shibambu has left. Dalim Mpofu has left. Omafikizolo Busisiwe Mkhwebane, who was the previous public protector, Mzwanele Manyi, who used to be with ATM, who used to be with the ANC, has left the EFF. Now they're joining a Mafikizolo party, which has the symbolic notion of Umkhonto Wesizwe, the guerrilla arm, the guerrilla military arm of ANC during the struggle, which was disbanded. You still have the MK veterans who earn a grant, who are celebrated, but many of them feel there was no justice. Of course, we saw the assassination of Chris Hani where there was no vengeance. Nelson Mandela would go and calm the people. We'd see the death of Robert Mangaliso Sobugu of the PAC. The PAC today is not really relevant, even though they've joined the government of national unity. You'd see Inkatha Freedom Party losing Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, them now working with the same right-leaning DA, and where some people are saying, these Zulus have always been sellouts. The IFP and the Zulu King, even Uzwelithini, would work with the apartheid government, would work with white people, would work with the Queen. They weren't really here to uplift the black or the Zulu agenda, so to speak. And here we are now, Jacob Zuma, frustrated, leaving the ANC to form, not leaving the ANC per se, because he's still fighting to remain a member, which is weird, to create Umkhonto Wesizwe party, claiming that, no, we want to use Umkhonto Wesizwe to get back into the ANC. Xavier saying it's because the ANC's got a huge tentacle. It's like the dollar. The dollar in the world, you want to de-dollarize, it's hard work. Because everywhere you go in the world, the dollar is relevant. But yes, we want to bring the rubles. Yes, we want to bring the RMB, the yuan. We want to bring, maybe not the yen because they're more west-leaning. We want to bring other currencies. But you're like, look, the dollar's still strong. So you're like, look, we'll push the other currencies, but I'll still trade in dollars. It's basically what you're saying. And where America's saying, oh, no, we won't give you any more dollars. You're like, no, but I still want to trade in dollars, even though I hate the dollar and I love the Chinese currency. I love the Russian currency. I love the Indian currency, the rupees. It doesn't make sense, bro. And the black vote is being split, and the consolidation of black people that was meant to happen with the ANC has become more fractured today. And it's like, but black people are not going anywhere. If anything, you guys are fighting. Malema is now fighting with Moiseni Ndlozi for not telling him that he knew that Floyd Shibambu was leaving. Floyd Shibambu left. Julius Malema says it was like losing his brother. Floyd Shibambu's like, we're not brothers, we're political colleagues. So I don't know what the hell that is about. Then Dali Mpofu leaves and he says he was actually working with Zuma to set up Umkhonto Wesizwe party while he was in the EFF, a form of some type of treason and disloyalty itself. Malema having left the ANC, but still wants to laugh at Ramaphosa. Jacob Zuma himself, angry with the ANC of Ramaphosa, but still wanting to be part of the same GNU under Ramaphosa. It's a mess. And who loses at the end of the day? The same poor black people that were left out in the cold, oppressed, exploited by the British colonial system and government, by the Afrikaner apartheid government, and 30 years later by an ANC government, which today is no longer an ANC government. Today it's an ANC, DA, and others government. Which means the black political leaders were never serious about transformation. They gave black people crumbs, social welfare to kind of shut them up. Here's a free cheap house. Here's some free education, which is not going to give you real skills. And we'll give you a child grant because you guys love just making children with no plan. And the schools are not going to upskill your children. Here's a grant now, which was born under COVID. Social relief for distress grant because you guys don't really have jobs. We can't create jobs for you. We're not going to give you tenders. This is just for cadres. We're not going to give you access to BEE. That's only for Cyril Ramaphosa, Patrice, and their little scheme that works with white people who use many of them to front. We're not going to let you in. But we're not really serious about changing the imbalances of the past. We have not moved land that was taken, that can be isolated under the apartheid government to say this is the land taken from black people. We will take it. It's a no-brainer. It's non-negotiable. You guys took this land through a law. We are taking this land back through law. And then we'll see how we hand this land back to black people or we compensate them financially for this land. We haven't done that. We have not brought black people into the mainstream economy. If anything, we've made sure that black people have no real skills. It was almost better under Bantu education. Black people could do woodwork. They could fix cars. They could do plumbing, electrical work. They could do farming. Today, black kids come out with a matric. They have fuck all skills. They have a university degree. The vast majority have fuck all skills. They don't have access to funding. They don't have access to land. You won't let them into the economy. And you've made sure that they're useless. And now you've got black political leaders fighting amongst each other while it's poor black people again suffering. And white people are complaining, corruption, but they fund these same people. The rich white people are funding these people as their puppets. The middle class white people are angry at black people, but they don't realize that them and middle class blacks are exactly the same. And the angry middle class whites and the angry middle class blacks and the coloreds and the Indians are angry. But they don't realize that they're being used, exploited by this rich elite who are black, white, Indian, and the poor are the ones that are getting all the social welfare, but we're not going anywhere. We've got a problem. We need to have a serious conversation. Ipene limnyama, the swart pen, pene ensu, the black pen, listilo noir. Have a great day.